So, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode where we're going to be sitting down as principal with Tiffany Gillespie. I have the awesome pleasure to design the interior and the exterior of both of these prayer journals. And of course, this was actually from several years ago, but I wanted to bring her on because it's amazing on how she's still selling these products. These products are so amazing that they're still selling. And on top of that, she has expanded her book offerings as well as some other things in her store that she's selling. And so I wanted to sit down with her. She is an amazing, accomplished woman. I mean, I have literally amazing clients. She's a serial entrepreneur, and she is an award-winning business and political consultant, and she's the CEO of T3 Diversity Solutions. T3 is a management consulting firm that provides women and minority-owned businesses with the consulting, access, and support needed to successfully navigate the global marketplace and position their companies for accelerated financial growth, especially in industries where gender and racial diversity is lacking. This serial entrepreneur is also the author of 4 written works, including Mornings with God, 60 Seconds with God to Jumpstart Your Morning. From carrying around for a year a 3-ring binder filled with notes and inspiration to start her event planning business, to having her work featured on an historic episode of the Food Network's hit show, American Diner Revival, Tiffany is the real deal. Just before having a crucial brain surgery, Tiffany made a promise to God that if he allowed her to survive, she would live life out loud and walk in her purpose every day. Tiffany is also a Drexel University professor and a member of the following organizations: Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delaware County Black Caucus, Upper Darby Business and Economic Development Committee, the Advisory Board for LaSalle University Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and the LaSalle University Alumni Association Subcommittee for Entrepreneurship. She's not the entrepreneur who received handouts, investments, or crazy overnight success. She's the entrepreneur who has worked overtime and took a huge leap of faith to make her dreams happen. Guys, let's jump into today's episode. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this. Welcome to Print School. This is our very first interview on our channel. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are this close to 10,000 subscribers. Really excited. So new giveaway coming soon. But in the meantime, I wanted to bring you guys what I promised you, which was that we're going to be sitting down with amazing clients of mine who have done amazing things and talking about products that match what we talk about here on Print School, which are planners, journals, print-on-demand products. And today we have Tiffany Gillespie, who is amazing, one of my clients again. And of course, I had the honor to design her 2 products, which are her 2 prayer journals. And so, Tiffany, hello, welcome to the channel, welcome to the Print School community.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I'm excited.
So glad. So first of all, let's introduce these products. Tell me about your 2 products that you have, and then we'll jump into some more things with those.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the oldest product, and that is Prayed Up. Hopefully you all can see that cover there, but we'll, send out links and you all can see it, up close. But Prayed Up, the encouragement journal, I wrote this in 2016. So this is actually the first project that I worked on with Genesis and with the print school. And I don't even know if we were calling it the print school back then, but I've been working with Genesis for a while. So Prayed Up, the encouragement journal, it literally takes readers on a journey, a 21-day journey to help them figure out ways to encourage themselves and to keep themselves encouraged. And it is literally, I'm going to block my face a little bit, but you can see that on each page, there is a blurb or a written portion. And then there's also these journal pages where you can actually write additional thoughts. So each of the entries for Prayed Up, the encouragement journal, it really deals with my own journey of dealing with a lack of encouragement. I, in 2016, was probably about maybe 8 or 9 years removed from a bout of depression. So when I first went to college, I found myself battling with depression, which is actually common among college freshmen, especially if you go away from home and just the dynamic of college. So it was the first time that I had ever battled with that. Also in college in 2010, I lost my first love, and one of my really good friends, though, like definitely hands down at the time, one of my very best friends, to suicide and battled with depression after that. That was very hard for me to really kind of deal with and to understand, at the time. So what I didn't realize is that the pain that I was experiencing in those moments. And even, after graduating from college, I felt like I went through another, period of that where I just was trying to kind of figure out, like my purpose. And we'll talk about that for the purpose journal. But I was really just trying to kind of navigate this space between who I thought I would be and who I actually was. And it was sometimes discouraging. Sometimes I felt really empowered. And that's what this journal does is I share my story transparently, right? These pain points, but how I was able to pull encouragement from them. And now I can't even remember the last time that I've been sad, let alone, feeling some sort of depression. So that's Prayed Up, the encouragement journal. And then we also have Prayed Up, the purpose journal. So this one came out in 2017. So 2017, this one came out, and as you all can see, sorry for the glare, but you can see that my face is on here, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, the two different covers. But Prayed Up, the purpose journal, again, I didn't realize that even though this came out in 2017, the material, the content for this was being built organically during that 2011 to maybe 2014 time period. So years ahead of the actual production of this, the content was being written for it. I just didn't know it at the time. But this also, again, takes you through many of the pain points that I battled with and many pain points that I find that other people battle with, that you find yourself asking questions about whether or not your sacrifices are paying off, battling with financial lack, even though you're walking in purpose. That can cause some people to give like a real side eye to God because it's like, I'm doing what you told me to do, but I'm still struggling. And then wondering, if God hears you. So literally, I'm transparent, about my journey and the questions that I asked God, the questions that caused me pain as I was trying to navigate and understand my purpose. And the reason why I do it that way is so that you can see yourselves in this. And then you can identify it's very similar setup as the other journal in terms of having like a story component connected to it, and then some questions for you to answer and space for you to journal. So that's what those two journals are about: Prayed Up, the encouragement journal, and the purpose journal.
So, what are the products that you develop? What would you say to someone? Actually, before I even do that, I would have like a pop question that wasn't even planned.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a timeline of these two different products, right? One that was much earlier than the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that on purpose? Was it just like, as far as these products coming about, sometimes we can be like, hey, I'm releasing this product in like this date, and releasing this product in like this date. But it seems like these products didn't come that way. It was kind of like as things, as there were ebbs and flows. So can you explain that for people who may be a little bit too strategic? Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Because this seems to be much more purpose, where it was kind of like just the right timing. So can you quickly talk about, just how that came about as far as like when these products were released?
Absolutely. So, what I'll say is that if I can be, completely honest, God sent me Genesis and what is now called the Print School at the time that I was ready to move forward with releasing. I was not thinking about, and I'm glad you asked this question, and she doesn't know that I'm going to give this answer, but I'm really just about to dote on her a little bit. But what happened was, so I started journaling myself. So I keep journals. I show people my journals all the time. I literally have notebooks everywhere, right? So I started journaling probably in, honestly, if I can really think back, I started keeping a diary as a kid. So I mean, like probably middle school, right? I didn't know that all of it was a divine setup for me to become an author 10, 15, some things 20 years later. So the process for me, when I was journaling and like pouring out my heart to God, it wasn't with the intention of becoming an author at all. I think that what happens is that at the moment that you are ready for something, God will send the resources, and resources can come in the form of people. So Genesis and I were working with an organization, and the founder of that organization, was like, hey, we need to produce like some products. And we were like, okay, cool. And I remember, that Genesis and I, we had a conversation. I'm like, I think I want to write like a journal or something. Like, this is my space. This is where I'm flowing. And literally, it was Genesis that told me, go back. Like, you probably, like, where are your journals? Like, pull them out. I probably have a journal with the notes that Genesis gave telling me to go back to my journals, right? So that's really what it was born out of. And I think that even if you set out with the intention, like, let's say that that you want to write a book, right? I think that respecting your own process, being present in what that process looks like for you, and then not overcomplicating things is really important. Because again, this was organic. Like, I had everything that I need. I just needed something like the print school to come about to light a fire under what was already there. And I would say that for most authors, if you're writing on a topic where you are the subject matter expert, and when it comes to faith and purpose and encouragement, I know that stuff, right? So if you're writing on something where you are the subject matter expert, you don't have to take 50 years, to release a product because you already have it. You're the expert. So that's what I would say is, like, respect your process, be present in your process. And honestly, for most of us, if we really are an expert in that area, we probably already have the content that we need to at least get started.
That's really good. I like what you said about protecting, like basically knowing your process. I think it's
Mhm.
important that you know how you work, and self awareness is so key, especially when you're creating something of your own, right? It's like, you know, a lot of times because we're birthing out of our own genius, we can overcomplicate it. And then on top of that, we don't know who we are. So we don't know our ebbs and flows. We don't know how we process things. And then it becomes overwhelming. And it's because you don't really know yourself. So you have to get to know how you do what you do so that you can do it best. So what would you say to someone? Because of course, print school is filled with a ton of different people trying to create just all different types of products, right? But there is a portion in our community that they want to create exactly what you've created, which are faith-based, journals, devotionals. So what would you say to someone who's thinking about making one? They want to make a prayer journal devotional. What would you give? Let's say, give me three things that you would give as tips when creating that type of product.
Yeah, so first and foremost is definitely prayer. You need to understand what you are creating and why, right? So purpose is not exclusive to me. Anybody can write about purpose. Encouragement is not exclusive to me. Prayer is not exclusive to me as an individual. But your story behind, why you write and the things that you are, putting into your journal are really important. And I would say that so first is definitely to make sure that you're praying on guidance for what it is that God wants you to share. Pray for strategy. God is the ultimate strategist. I tell, my clients that I work with in consulting all the time, like, God is your number one consultant. I'm just the accountability partner that he put here on earth to help you walk in what God told you to do. And that's the same thing with the print school. And Genesis and I are very much on one accord where faith is concerned, that if you come to the print school with a product, it is Genesis that is a vessel, that God chose to help you birth, but God told you what to put in that journal if you are listening. So I'm really grateful, for the personal relationship that I developed with God, that helped to produce this, right? These things were produced in vulnerability. When I was, and this is how strategic God is, right? Because I can be very analytical. So had God told me first that we were writing a book, I'd have been like, oh, I don't think I want to write about that because that might go in the book. I don't think I want to include that, or maybe I shouldn't be so open and so vulnerable, right? But because this was really a thing of prayer and just like one-on-one time with God, it was God who gave the content and God who gave the idea in terms of what was supposed to go in the journal. So prayer would be number one. Number two is to write everything down. We know as creatives, there are ebbs and flows in our creativity. So sometimes it is, crystal clear and we can flow and write and you could produce a whole book in one day. But then other times you're like, where is the creative flow? Like, what is going on? You are on the struggle bus trying to figure out something to talk about, right? So when your creativity is flowing, write everything down because you don't know when it could, stop or maybe the flow is not as fluid. And then the last thing that I would say is definitely to work with an expert. I could not have done this on my own. I don't want to. So there are some things I need to like update one of the pages in the journals or whatever because they're outdated, right? I wrote these 4 and 5 years ago. I went straight to Genesis and was like, listen, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fix it. Like what needs to happen because you're the expert here, right? So I would really encourage you all to work with an expert. And of course, I'm going to, push and promote Genesis, but I would encourage you, to go in the direction that God leads you in. But whatever you do, don't try to go it alone because there's a difference. There is a difference in quality. And what I would say about faith-based is that as faith-based business owners, producers, creatives, we must always be concerned about producing in excellence. We can't afford to represent God with like shoddy quality. So get the help that you need through, an organization or an entity rather like the principal.
So, and I, that's something to point out is quality. Something that we talk about in principle all the time is like, if design is not your thing, you need to hire a graphic designer. You need to hire, and we've talked about, you need to find someone who can design and bring, your ideas to life. It may not be me because I do a lot of, the coaching and stuff like that. But I tell people you have to find someone. I think it's important too that you take it seriously because in today's world, people are so used to creating products like every 30 days. And I think this is just such a testament to how like you can create a product that's like from like 3 years ago, even longer, and you can still sell them. And that's how you know you have a good product. Like good products are not like, okay, how thick is it? Does it have enough pages? It's not about that. It's really about the intention and the purpose because as you said, every product, why are you doing it, right? And if it's a good product, the goal is the results. If it's 10 pages and the person gets results from those 10 pages, that's a good product. If it's 100 pages, that's a good product. And I think for a lot of people, they focus so much on how something like, does it have this and does it have that and does it have this and that? And at the end of the day, what's the purpose? If it's going to complete the purpose, it's a good product, but you do have to make sure that it's packaged correctly so that people can be open to wanting to get the results, right? So I think that makes it really good. So my next question is, how long did it take you to write the content?
Mm-hmm. So I want to piggyback on something that you just said, and then I'll answer that question. So the one thing to kind of piggyback on that, I think that we live in a society of like comparison, and we live in a microwave society. And when we are watching other people producing, seemingly something new every week or every 30 days, we feel like that we have to keep up with that, right? But again, my number one tip was you need to be in prayer about what God wants you to do and the way that God wants you to produce, right? So I've written another book since then, and I had Genesis like consulted with me in the beginning portion of the products, and then we ended up using like a different publishing company for that particular work. But even with that, right, I still went back to Genesis, right? I was like, okay, this is my next thing. Like, can you kind of provide some guidance? And that's why I wanted to say, like, for every product, I don't know, maybe God had me to use that other company for that particular book because the company needed it, right? Not because I didn't want to work with the print school, but all of that to say that you really have to be listening to God and doing what this is his work, right? These are his words. And I'm taking his words and making them comprehensive through my own story. But even that, this is this life is not my own. So the testimony that I have that's in this work, this is God's work, right? So you need to make sure that you are doing what God is instructing you to do and not comparing yourself to any other individual or any person in their process. And honestly, for a lot of these people who are producing every 30 days, like if you look at best-selling authors, like New York Times best-selling authors, they're not producing a new book every 30 days, right? So many times we get caught up in what we see like on social media and somebody producing something and it's the same content that's being produced over and over. So when you are in your process, respect and be present in your process. Okay. That's a whole other conversation for another day. Going forward to answer your question about how long it took me to write the content. So once I realized that God wanted me to utilize the content that I have, right? Once I or like the journaling that I had done, I would say it maybe took me about a month to put each journal together. This is also now 4 and 5 years ago. So it's a little bit hard for me to remember exactly, but with all of my books, even with the third one, um, I would say that it probably took me about 30 days. And again, when I was going through pulling together my manuscript, that was the part that Genesis and the print school actually helped with, right? Like I sent my first draft of that manuscript to Genesis and we started to kind of formulate what those pieces were going to look like. So the first one and the second one, definitely about 30 days. The third one, I would say, maybe 30 days to first draft. And then from there, it maybe took like 3 or 4 months until I actually had like a physical copy of the book. So each one again was different, but the content for all of them had been developed years ahead of time because it was stuff that I already knew.
Got it. So let's talk about covers. So one of them has your face. The first one doesn't. The second one does. Then we have Mornings with God, which doesn't have your face on it. Were these strategic? What I mean, how for you these covers was it strategic that you had your face on them that you didn't? Was there any thought behind it, or was it kind of just like I just want the product to look good, so whatever way it flows. So bring me into that too as well.
All right. So honestly, it was Genesis that did the design. I don't even know if she knows she like set herself up for that answer. The first one, so Prayed Up, and it's a beautiful journal, right? I love this is my baby, y'all. This is my first written work, so it really is my baby. And actually, Genesis produced the ebook version of this. So I had an ebook version of this first, and it was Genesis that said, "You need to turn this into a physical product." And I was like, "No, I'm not doing that." But here we are. So obviously, I listened. But so this first journal, I just felt like what I would say is that at this point, I think that I was still trying to figure out my brand and what I wanted my brand to look like. Also, at the time that I produced this, again, I was working with another organization, serving as like one of its like leading members or whatever years ago. So it was kind of like trying to like balance between their brand and my brand and all of that. That is one of the reasons why I'm such an advocate and I preach this like it's the gospel. You have to build your own brand, okay? Because that's why we have such a distinct difference between these two covers. Like these are two totally different covers, both beautiful, both amazing, but they represent me in two different places in my life. I also think that they represent, even Genesis, like as a consultant for these and her ability to guide me. Like Genesis has always been to me like the top expert on like design, branding, like all of those things. But I watched, you all getting to work with her now is just like leaps and bounds of years of growth. Like seriously, right? That you have the best version to date of Genesis knowledge, her skill set, the team at the print school. And it was an honor, like that she journeyed with me and I journeyed with her. And we were able to figure out that, like, okay, this was a great cover, but maybe we should shift directions. And again, this wasn't my idea. I wasn't going to put my face. I sent it to Genesis. I said, Genesis, you can do whatever you want. You can design however you want. This is what she sent back. I was like, wait, I ain't mean like that, right? On the cover. But it was the best decision. And honestly, this one has sold more than the encouragement journal. So having my face on the cover, I think helped to sell more because people really felt like it was more personal, I think.
So I think it's a point out too is like evolution and that, your first product, even though it could be a really good product, it may not be the best, like I think everyone tries to put like their best into their first product. Like, like this is like my absolute best. But I like what you said because you're going to change. You are going to change. And what's crazy though is that people will still buy that first product because it is good, right? But then you see the evolution of, okay, from this product to this product to this product. And that's what I love, I think, about, when the fact of having you on here is that we can see we can literally see it, in these different products. Do you have the Mornings with God by you by any chance? Okay, got it. Okay, okay, it's here. It's here. Got it. Okay, do you want to go get it real fast? Can you go? Yeah, go. So while she's talking, I want to talk about this really quickly while she's talking, which is that don't overthink product development. Like of course you want to make sure that you have all the things in place that make a good product, but your first product is not going to be your best product. And we see this with so many companies, where the first offering, the first product, it was great, it made it to market, but it's going to evolve as you get more data, as you get more experiences, as you grow as a person, as the CEO grows, as teams grow, they get more experience and they see shifts and changes. And I think another thing to point out too is that our lives, the best innovation comes from you living, you seeing the world in different facets, and that can create even better content because you've grown. So I want her to show, Tiffany, can you show us Mornings with
Yes.
God? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And let's see how this baby is thick. Can you turn to the side, please? Thank you.
Yes, baby. Yeah. Okay. This is 365 days of scriptures, prayers, affirmations. So I can show you all like one of the middle pages. Hopefully you can get that angle.
Mhm.
There
There we go.
So each day, each page. So, and actually, I have another shameless plug. I've reached out to Genesis and the prep school because I want to revise and edit this, and I want it to be this size, right? So I want people to be able to write in this the way that they are able to write in the other one. So, and Genesis was like, okay, this is the process. We have to go through the process, but yeah, this is Mornings with God. Like I said, it's a much smaller book. Doesn't have, my face on the cover or anything like that. Thicker in terms of like, the size. But yeah, so these are my babies.
And I want to point out that we go, so like, for instance, she had two products that were like less than 30 days, and then she comes out with 365 days. So, like, again, we talk about evolution of content, like, here.
Yeah.
And I think too that it's not that, and I'm trying to when it comes to covers, she has three beautiful covers. So don't think that like you have to have your face on it. But I'm saying there's different ways to play the product. There's different ways. So you go with the way that you want to go. Okay. So the next question is, what has been some of the biggest takeaways from customers who've bought these? Like, and so I want to talk about impact because a lot of times people are so fearful of releasing something that they forget if you don't release it, whatever the purpose is for that product, it will never happen because people won't be able to experience it. So you need to put it out there. So what have people told you, what were these biggest takeaways they've told you from experiencing your product?
Absolutely. So these products have literally sold around the world. I didn't see it being that big. I was like totally fine with Philadelphia and like some people buying I just had two of my family members, actually, I have a whole stack of the journals over there. Two of my family members just purchased a total of 15 of them just for me to give away. So I don't know, maybe the members of the prep school might be able to, participate in those giveaways. But literally, like, they already have their copies. So they want other people around the world to be impacted by what they learn from getting their copies. And I think that's a testament. When other people begin to speak for your product, you know that you've done something right. Mornings with God, oh, baby, there is one person, and I'm not going to say her name, but if we were doing like a live broadcast, she would probably be watching, and she would say this, right? Every time I mention the Mornings with God book, she's like, yes, I've already gone through it 2 or 3 times, right? Because this one came out, I think, in like 2018. So she has already gone through this, 2 or 3 times. And she's like, I'm ready, for the expanded and revised version. But every time I mention it, I don't have to go on and on and on, because the people who have been impacted by this, they begin to speak for the work themselves. And I think that that's when you know that you've made an impact. I had somebody else, I forgot I actually had a donation. So I had 16 journals. Somebody else who has all of my books was like, hey, I want to bless somebody. You can pick what you want to give away. I'll pay for it. Those types of things are indicative of, I believe in this product so much that I want other people to have it, to the point that I'm willing to pay for you to give it away, to someone else. So I think that's a clear indication. And honestly, like, the number one thing for me is that I just want God to be pleased, right? I don't want to, one of the things, there's going to be a couple of questions, I don't know how it goes down when you get to heaven, but in my imagination, you might have to have a conversation with God, right? Let's say he opens up his book and he has some questions like, why did you do X, Y, and Z, right? One of the things that I don't want God to ever, like, that I don't ever want to have to explain or anything, is why I did not execute in the way that God instructed me to, for the lives that were to be impacted by that work. When we do things, and this is for anybody, whether you're a faith-based business or not, working with the print school, whatever you produce, it has to have a purpose. You should be able to tell the story behind everything that you produce. So that story, it begins to speak for itself. And when people are encouraged and their lives are changed and all of that, that's how you know that you've done what God instructed you to do, because your products are supposed to change lives.
That's so, but like, it's key. Is it a purpose product? And I think, one of the things we've been talking about with print school, right, is especially in the planner and journal community, is that we are, there's two ways to go with these products. Either you have, and I think I have an example here. Either, you can have a pretty generic product that's pretty, it's generic, but there's nothing special about it, right? It's a basic interior. It's pretty. Don't get me wrong. It's pretty. Like, this is a planner. It's pretty. It has your months, and but there's no purpose behind it. And so, these sell by mass, right? There, you see them in the stores all the time, and they sell because, number one, they're sold in mass. And most people who are following print school, you don't have the capital, right, to like just say, okay, we're going to print 100,000 planners, put them all these stores, and of course they're going to sell, because you have that strategy. But for the majority of you guys who are in print school, one of the things I tell you guys, that if you're going to do this and you're starting from a smaller company, you have to start out purpose, because it has this unique niche offering as a product that people can attach to. And then as you scale and grow, you can start getting more generic and things like that. But you have to start with a purpose, because that's how you set yourself apart. And so some people, they don't want to get purpose. Like, it's just too much. It's just, I don't want to go deep. I don't want to do that. But that's really how you connect with people. So I want to talk about money. We'll talk about pricing, because at print school we talk about money, because that's what we're about here. Okay. Purpose is awesome. But you want to make sure that purpose can pay, because otherwise, you can be sad and have all this purpose and no money. And, it starts
Amen. Somebody.
a little sad. So let's talk about margins. When you have three products that we're focusing on today, okay? Do these have healthy margins when it comes to your pricing?
Mhm.
What's the? I don't want to get into too many details because people don't. But at least, like, what are the retail prices? And would you say that you would have at least? Well, let me just. You got healthy margins, and what are the retail
I
margins?
got healthy margins, and it's fine. I can give percentages.
Yeah, very
I would say that for um, these two, the margins are probably about 75% profit,
okay.
which is extremely high. This
Yeah.
is very high. So yeah, I would say it's about 75% all profit, right? So one of the things, and this is important with the strategy, and when you all are like listening to and working with Genesis and the print school, you want to listen to the advice on pricing. Many business owners and like solopreneurs and authors and those who are just starting out, they struggle with pricing due to lack of confidence because you think that someone's not going to pay what you know your product is worth for whatever reason. There's a lot of different things that factor into confidence. Don't feel alone in that. Like I said, I had to get a push for my price point. This wasn't something because honestly, as long as I was like, I easily could have settled for like a 25% profit. Easily. Like, oh, I know how much it costs to produce. Let me just charge twice the amount. And there I made, 25, 50% profit, right? I could have settled for that. But I wanted to, like Genesis said, I don't know what type of God people serve that wants them to live in lack, right? And I didn't create these products with that goal in mind. Honestly, it's something that's happened as a result of. I just knew that I wanted to have a major impact, and because of that, the journals have been successful and been selling for years. So these are about 75% profit. So of the retail price, about 75% of that is profit. For this one, I used a different printing company, and this one is actually less expensive to print than these two. So again, you want to make sure that you're working with an expert like Genesis in terms of where you should be doing your printing, what's a good price point for printing, all of those things. Because how does the 300, this has like 170 something pages in it, or 185 pages in it. How does 185 pages come out to be less than like 50 to 60 pages, right?
Because is the company, never mind. It's the company switch. Yeah, that made a difference. It made a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I would listen to whatever Genesis recommends in terms of printing, but this one probably has maybe like a 80 to 85% profit based on the price point. So it's a little bit higher than the others, but yeah, I'm far beyond breaking even. I'll say that much when it comes to the book.
And I think that's so important. Making sure that you're shopping around. She raised a very good point on how you have a book that has 185 pages and it's cheaper than the other one. And this is why shopping around with different companies, and companies have changed over the years. So you are always looking for, okay, hey, how are the prices updating here? Another thing I'm going to say too is that she was really smart because she kept the insides. Even, I mean, imagine if her was that we much smaller were color. We talk about this all the time. Things impact cost. So keeping, design, okay, we keep outside this, inside that. It helps to keep those costs down because you do want to be able to expand, and as she pointed out, you want to be able to make profit so that if you decide you want to scale some of these ideas, you have some coin in the bank, that you can use versus you have scraps in the bank because you are like, oh, it's fine as long as I just make a little bit of change. And so, for some of you, it may cost you $3.99 to print, or let's say two something to print, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I can sell it for $9.99. I'm like, no, you can't. You can't do that. It's not how that works. But we feel like as long as we make just a little bit of profit, it's fine. But remember, you are our business. So the other thing I want to ask you is, which we already talked about honestly, which is what would you recommend to others who are struggling with pricing their journals? But you really answered that, which is, you have to remember that when it comes to these products, that number one, no lack. Number two, we're not here to break even. And I just want to add as well, you're in business. This is not a like, let me just put there's a little bit more dollars on top and let me just make no, it's a business. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have Print School. That's why this YouTube channel has grown so fast. Because my biggest thing is there's tons of content out there on designing planners and journals, but no one's talking about the business. And so people are making planners and journals and they're broke because they're not looking at the business. So you want this to be, if you said this is a business, then let it be a business. So a few more questions. As someone who has multiple products, how do you make sure all of your products flow together under one brand? So we're going to talk a little bit about branding right now, because all of these are under. Now you have your company. You have two companies. So you have, you have actually no more one because she's also a founder. But
I got a couple of companies.
companies, but so this is the Tiffany Gillespie brand, right? So as someone who is creating these products under this brand, tell me a little bit more about how you've been strategic, with branding and marketing with three different products under one umbrella. You have a coaching program, you have services, you got the other companies. So like how do you do it? How do you make it all flow together? So that for some people may say, Genesis, I want to release more products, but I don't want to look scatterbrained. I don't want to look for that. How do you make it make sense?
Yeah. Again, and I promise y'all, we did not arrange this beforehand. But I'm gonna say again, who's consulting you is really important. I remember, and I can literally see it right now. Genesis and I, we went to, I think a Christian leadership conference, together, and we ended up at this, a restaurant, this Black-owned restaurant in, Philly. And I remember which table we were sitting at and everything. And I was telling her, I still, even after producing these two, I think maybe even Mornings with God was out. I'm like, I still feel a little bit scatterbrained. And what I will say for me is that really kind of refining and kind of pulling these things together, it went back to a matter of confidence, right? I didn't feel like that if I niched my brand that people would gravitate toward it because they had always known me for so many different things. And honestly, I got tired of people asking me the same question. Well, what exactly do you do again? What are you doing in your businesses? I got tired of that and what I wanted to be known for. And the other thing was also having a conversation with God about this, right? That I know that God has created me to build businesses, right? I know that He called and created me to be a serial entrepreneur, and that's exactly what I've been able to do. But for the Tiffany Gillespie brand, for the name that He gave me, what do you want this to be associated with in the earth? And it's always been about, or rather, what I'll say is it's been refined to really high level business concepts and principles, in faith, right? So marketplace ministry, that's what it's all about. So whether it's a product, whether it's a book, a t-shirt, if it is a service, it has to be thinking and operating at this higher level when we think about faith and business. That means that, when I'm, teaching business concepts, right? That they're going to be business concepts that you would learn in an MBA program. They're not just going to be regular old things that you could just Google because it's higher level. When it comes to these faith-based products, these are things that are higher level. They're going to challenge you. I'm getting ready to launch a campaign for the second part of my online store because I reopened my online store after many years. And I've literally only gotten through marketing half of the products. People are still wait, you have more products? Yes, because so many of them, right? But what I'm doing is that with this second half, I'm telling my story. I'm challenging people in their faith at a higher level. I want them to think about purpose in a different way. And when you wear these products, when you rock these products, you are making a bold declarative statement about where your faith stands, right? So all of that to say that when you're thinking about your branding, I had to determine and really be clear on what I wanted my name to be associated with and saying no to anything that lacks association. I got a phone call today before this interview, And the person was asking me like, hey, I have this opportunity for you. I'm expanding. Do you want to go? No. Why? Because it's not lining up with where I'm going now. If it doesn't fall in like one of three buckets, it doesn't fit with the Tiffany Gillespie brand. There's nothing I can do with it. So you have to be okay with that.
There's a lot of nuggets in this interview, which I planned but didn't plan. So that's why I love this, because what you said, oh my gosh, this is sweet. Oh my gosh. Okay. So some of you guys, I think I posted on this channel, which is we did, Tiffany and I have done a lot of things together. But one of the things that I think is so key is that Tiffany is really big. Like if you ever watch Tiffany, she speaks definitively. It's like one of her brand like mechanism. When she speaks, even like the way that she speaks, it's very definitive. Like there is no like gray around her speech. Like it's like I'm telling you, you just watch her speak. Like there's like periods, like you can hear the periods in her speech, okay? Because that's how she is. Like she's very like okay, this and then this and then this and that and she said she's analytical, which is very true. And I think it's very important because of that, it saves you a headache of having too many things on your plate. Now, I'm the opposite. I'm not definitive. I'm the opposite of her, right? I'm not definitive. I'm like, oh, I'm not going on this channel, this channel, this channel. And this is why you have to make sure you have people who you can watch and follow who are definitive, because you have to make sure that you're not, as in growing this business, as she says, like it goes into buckets, three buckets. If it doesn't fit it, you don't do it. And I think for a lot of people, especially, who have these ideas, you can have all these ideas and then you create like 100 businesses and you wonder why, things aren't flowing. Well, with her brand, everything makes sense because it fits under what she stands for. And anything that doesn't fit the brand, she doesn't do. And I think for some people, they feel like they're missing out. Like if I don't do like something like this, I'm gonna miss out. No, something like this, I'm gonna miss out. And you can never miss out on what's not for your brand. If it's not for your brand, how are you missing out on it? Got it? So I want to talk about this. We have like two more questions left. One of them is what's next for the Tiffany Gillespie brand? And matter of fact, let me just say this first, because Tiffany's a serial entrepreneur. So can you first just, we don't have to do this. I think every now and then it's good to pull some receipts because she's a professor, like y'all, and she's not a professor at like one of these IDCC schools that like Bow Wow went to. Like she's a professor at one like the top schools in Philadelphia. So can you like drop your credentials? Because I just want people to understand that you don't need to hide, like, and say, oh well, it's just, I'm humble. I'm not listen, accomplished, okay? You drop all your credentials, your businesses that you have, so that people get a more fuller idea that this is more than just, well, I had an idea. No, this is someone who you're moving, you're pushing, hopefully too, you can encourage someone. So just those are your businesses before we go into these last questions.
Absolutely. So as Genesis said, I'm a professor at Drexel University. So that's here in Philadelphia. I've been with them now for about 6 years. So I was very young when I started teaching, probably only a few years older than my students at the time when I started teaching. So that's been an amazing blessing. And that opportunity came out of my very first business, which was an event planning company. So the first business I started 8-9 years ago was an event planning company, and I still do events, just different types of events. I don't do social events anymore, and I only work for my consulting clients. So that the first business led to that opportunity. And I am also the owner of a consulting firm. So that's T3 Diversity Solutions. And we have like a group-based coaching program under that. And then we also have, again, some of those like one-on-one for individuals that are grossing over 250,000 in business. We have a program for them. We have services for our clients who are $1 million and more. And then for those who are less than 250. So under T3, we kind of have these different buckets again for how we engage with and work with people. So Professor, T3, co-owner of a hair salon here in Philadelphia, Studio 44. I serve on a lot of different committees, but my passion is around business, economic, and community development. But doing it from the perspective of marketplace ministry, right? So I understand that when I'm sitting at a table, with the mayor of a municipality, I'm bringing my whole self to that table. I don't hide my faith. I don't hide my passion, my advocacy. I don't hide any of those things. So I feel like I'm probably missing some titles, but I think I covered everything. Yeah, I think I covered everything.
You know, everything, everything. But I think it's important because we talk about serial entrepreneurship, and this is not to throw any shade on anyone. I probably should have said that as a disclaimer. But a lot of times, I'll be honest, in this world, when we talk about serial entrepreneurship, a lot of people, what they really mean are they have different Instagram pages and Facebook pages, and they don't really have multiple businesses. They have multiple ideas, and I think it's important for people to see people actually have multiple businesses, because when you have multiple businesses, okay, there is a different way that you operate, and you do have to learn how to produce in each one, and it can be really hard, it kind of when you get started. But I think one of the things that's also important, though, is that there's a grace when you're doing what you're supposed to do. There is a grace for it, and it does help you to produce accordingly. So what's next for the Tiffany Gillespie brand? And we have these three products. We also have your store, which you've released a ton of backpacks and apparel and all sorts of stuff, that speaks towards your mission, right? And so, what's happening? What's next? What's going on with the Tiffany Gillespie brand, so that people can see, just kind of follow and kind of see what's next.
Yeah, so I would say like the biggest thing that I'm pushing is my online store. And even, with the products that I chose, like I was definitely very inspired, by the print school. I these videos, so like I was on YouTube too, like how to create a t-shirt business, like taking all of my notes or whatever, because I've had the online store before. And it's been closed for years because the first couple of times that I had it, it just wasn't successful. And it's because I didn't know the things that are being taught as a part of the print school. So yes, I'm like a client of the print school, but I'm also a student of the print school. And I was definitely taking notes, and like I'll text Genesis and be like, hey, do you have a video on like X, Y, and Z? Because I'm trying to, learn how to do this particular thing better. So I would say, that the online store is definitely one of the biggest things that I'm pushing right now. Speaking engagements is another one that I'm really pushing. I have, a few of those coming up. And I'm really grateful for that. And then, of course, just like identifying for me, kind of those clients who are grossing 250K and more, and who are really kind of looking to scale. So I would say those are kind of my three things that I'm really focused on. And honestly, the online store is like passive, right? And that's what it should be, is passive income. You should be able to like schedule your marketing for that and like set it and forget it like a crock pot. So while I am pushing that, it doesn't consume a lot of my time at all. So my biggest focus is, just continuing to establish myself as an expert in my field, and the things that I'm passionate about, which is marketplace ministry. And yeah, just continuing to get more exposure.
So where can people find out about you? Where can they find out about these products that are coming up? Like, give us the deets. Where can we learn more about this Tiffany Gillespie brand?
Yes. So the easiest way, the most succinct way, is either to go to tiffanygillespie.com, and you can find everything there. It connects you. If you go there, it like connects you to a bunch of different, spaces or whatever. So anything that you need to find, you can find it there. I am on Instagram at I Build Businesses. That's my Instagram handle. So you can follow me there. And again, that link that's in my bio is essentially, to kind of dispatch you out to the different ways that you can stay connected with me. So I would say that those two are the biggest, the best way to stay in contact with me. I make myself more than available, to people to answer their questions. And you can always schedule a consultation with me. I think the link is like public to do that. So you can just schedule a consultation, if you just need some insight or whatever, you can schedule a one-on-one strategy session with me. I think those links are public as well. So just go to TiffanyGillespie.com or my Instagram page.
And I because I think this is important too, which is when it comes to strategy. So let me just to shout out Tiff is that I always tell people I'm not a business coach. I've never been one, right? I am the person that teaches you how to package your products and like take your genius and make them into products and services and offers. Tiffany, I'm not sure if you guys know, but I'm gonna make sure I link this in the YouTube description box. But she, her and I, we did a training on business planning, right? And it's like an intent, like it's on the YouTube channel, it's intensive, like teach you how to like build your business plan. But she is the one that really is about building businesses, right? But I will say this is that if you're someone who is looking to like, you I put like this, if you're someone that's like, I just want to start a business, but like I don't want to grow too big. I just kind of just would like to do a little bit this, a little bit that. This is not the person for you. You may want to find somebody else. But if you're looking to like really like put your hands in the dirt, she's not cheap. So if you're someone who look for affordable, this is not the place for you. But that's because she's good at what she does. People who are good at what they do, they should be honored for their work because it's going to make it's going to make you profitable. And that's what's really important about picking a business coach. So if you're looking for a business coach, I'm not a business coach. I am a platform coach. I teach you your platforms, your product. But if you're looking for a business coach, then she's the one for you. And can you tell us about, you have several offerings under the Tiffany Gillespie brand when it comes to business. So can you quickly just give us just a quick run through of those offers for people like, I'm looking for a faith-based business coach. What do you offer for those needs?
Absolutely. So we have 4 different offerings. So we actually currently, right now, and that's all I can say is right now, I have enrollment open for the Six Figure Society, which is a membership-based coaching program. So if you say, you know what, I need something, but I also need affordability, then that is the way to go. That is the most hands-off program, which means you'll be guiding a lot of things yourself. So that program right now during the enrollment period, the investment for that is only $99 a month, right? So that's more of a group-based platform. You get access to like our client library, all of those things. Now, and that program is really best for people, again, who are just like starting off, or you're just kind of trying to figure out maybe like how to pivot, or like just that beginner level. That could be a really good program for you. And that's on the Tiffany Gillespie website as well, so you don't have to search too hard for it. You can go to one of those links. Now, for our clients who are grossing over 250K, we have the Business Builder program. We have the Six Figure Setup, which helps you to scale up to $1 million. And then we have the CEO, the Elite Management program, which is very hands-on. It's very intensive. We schedule that in 6-month blocks, 6-month blocks. I work on site with my clients anywhere from 10 to 40 hours a week, depending on the particular client. So that one is really intensive. So wherever you find yourself, I think that we do have something available. But what I'll say about the membership program, the Six Figure Society, is that the enrollment for that is not always open. So that's one of those things, you got to catch it when the enrollment is open, but the other programs are always available. I can't hear you, G.
Sorry, my thing was on mute. Sorry. But guys, like I said before, all the information is in the description box below for as far as how to connect with her website, where to go get her products from. Everything is in her store. You can explore and see everything. And I think it's also good though too is to visit people's websites so you can get an idea of how you can win too. I think a lot of it serves as inspiration because you can see on how to win. And then of course, buy her products if you're looking to be encouraged when it comes to purpose, when it comes to being prayed up. And these are products that are definitely going to be perfect for you. And again, it's about intentionality. The best products are the products that you are intentional about, right? People say, oh, I've bought devotionals before. I did this before. But the question is, where was your intentionality with them, right? So when you buy her products, be intentional because they will produce the results that you're looking to produce. So, guys, again, thank you so much for joining me again with this very first kickoff interview when it comes to Print School. Again, it was my guest, Tiffany Gillespie. Guys, I will see you for another interview. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this interview, you want to see more guests, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the like. Let me know that you like this video. And of course, in the comments, tell me, what did you enjoy about it? Did you have any takeaways from it? What was the thing that really stuck out to you that you feel like you're going to use when it comes to building your planner, journal, or print on demand business, or whatever business it may be? Guys, thank you so much for joining.